Welcome, guys, to the Sportsman Untitled. I'm joined by Benjamin Bloom. We're going to have a chat about the promoted teams to the Premier League because one of them you must be very excited about, Ipswich Town in the Premier League again. Been a decent summer so far. Talk us through their business.
What they've done has been decent. They still need to do more. You've got to remember, this is a squad that was built, admittedly, with a very tidy budget in League One, but nonetheless built in League One. So I think the first thing you've got to do when you get promoted is make sure your team is as good as the one that got promoted, which sometimes it's quite hard to do with loan players and things of that nature. And then it's just squaring the impossible circle of getting players with Premier League experience that tend to cost millions in wages and transfer fees. And can you manage to add that experience without FFP breaches?
And looking at potentially the arrival of Sammy Schmodix, if it happens, it hasn't happened yet. We're not sure. Are you excited about him? I mean, incredible goal scorer in the Championship last season.
I am excited. I'm excited about a lot of the players that are new to the Premier League, but that does need to be balanced out. You're asking players to step up and do things they've done never before in their careers, admittedly in a glorious pattern of play under an exceptional young manager. But yeah, we don't want to have the same damning with faint praise Luton got of, are you buying next year's Championship team? You want to be buying your Premier League team.
There's a balance, isn't there, between doing what Luton did, and we've talked about Luton being in a fairly strong position now, and doing what Nottingham Forest did, which was wild, got them deductions and all sorts. There's got to be a middle ground there for Ipswich, right?
Well, the middle ground is that Nottingham Forest are still in the Premier League and Luton are in the Championship, regardless of a PNS breach. It's really tricky. I've got my stock answer for these type of interviews of that. After the last 2 years, whatever they give me, how can I complain?
And Kieran McKenna, obviously one of the hottest managers in English football right now. Bigger clubs seemed like they were coming calling at the start of the window. He stayed at Ipswich. It's huge for them. How excited are you to see his football in the Premier League?
Well, if I invert the question, I would have been pretty terrified if he had if he had have left. And you're talking about someone picking up after that massive rise, because we always say in law of economics and population and football, a very fast rise is always followed by you know what. So I'm very, very glad he's still here. He's now being linked with the England job, which is utterly ludicrous, but kind of amusing to me. And we just hope that he can stay with the club as long as possible and leave us whenever he goes off, which he inevitably will, in a nice position in the Premier League, 17th or above, yeah?
Was there a point this summer where you thought, nah, he's off, he's gone? Brighton, Chelsea, Man United,
Brighton.
all linked? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah. From what I've heard, that was extremely close.
Okay, and obviously there's a lot of players to be excited about in this Ipswich squad. You managed to sign Amari Hutchinson on a permanent basis. Is there any particular player you want to see do well in the Premier League, or you think will do well?
It'd be interesting to see how Leif Davis, because obviously his numbers have been to die for. Everyone kind of rather cruelly points out that it's very easy to bomb your left back 3/4 of the way out the pitch in League One and in the Championship. Can they, fix the system to do that? And Amari Hutchinson, I just never thought I'd see the day where I saw Ipswich Town spend that amount of money on a player, let alone their entire squad, as it was under Marcus Evans. But it would be fantastic for Hutchinson to do well. They've bought from big club academies before, and if he can hold his value or increase his value, obviously beloved player from what he did last season.
We're now only a couple of weeks away from the start of the Premier League season. That first game against Liverpool, it's going to be pretty spectacular. What do you expect the kind of 11 to look like in that game?
Well, there's going to be a fair number of players that played in League One. You think Leif Davis will be in there. You'd think Sam Morsey would be in there. George Hurst will probably start, and they're all in League One. And then hopefully the Premier League experience of Ben Johnson. And then you've got new expensive players like Jacob Greaves and Liam Delap, who you don't spend that amount of money and not put them in. But it's going to be testing. Let's hope momentum is with Ipswich and not with Liverpool and their new manager and their star-studded team.
New manager, it might be the best time to play them when Arnie.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. Are you? Is it more hope than expectation that Ipswich are going to stay up for you right now? Are you just excited going with the ride?
Well, the two teams that have done really well in Leeds and Sheffield United in coming out of the Championship and both finished ninth, the thing they did was they kept the team together that had really done well. And with both of those sides, Wilder and Bielsa took players who were in no way expected to be, top functioning championship players. And it was all about the pattern of play and the bigger system. So there's that hope. But then, we hear a lot from fans of clubs who have been up there saying, good luck, mate. It's brutal up there. You make one mistake and you're 3-0 down. So one of those two things is going to happen, and I know which one I hope.
And obviously you're going to have a busy goalkeeper probably this summer. You signed Muric from Burnley, right? Are you expecting him to be number one?
Yeah, very, very much so, yeah. And with the system as it was last year with Hladky, and given the lack of time we imagine our midfielders are gonna get, the feet of the goalkeeper seem like probably going to have the most touches, maybe in terms of setting up attacks. So yeah, hopefully his Premier League experience is going to be, something important.
He was a bit unfortunate to drop out of the Burnley team, wasn't he, last season? Let's move on to Leicester, because Ipswich are going to have to finish above 3 teams this season, and they'll be looking at Leicester and Southampton, the teams that came up with them, as serious, candidates they can catch. Leicester, Steve Cooper's been given the job there. How do you think he's going to get on? Because it's a tricky circumstance for Leicester at the minute, it seems.
Well, regardless of how he's going to get on, I really like Steve Cooper. And if you want to pop somebody in there who's experienced, and the one thing Steve Cooper across his career tends to do well is adapt to the situation he's in. And if he needs to play counter-attack with Nottingham Forest, then he does it. If he needs to park the bus and give it to Andre Ayew with Swansea, then he does it, and generally with success. And Steve Cooper got Forest up and he kept them there, and unfortunately it tailed off in the last season. So I like the hire. It's going to be hard, isn't it, with players exiting? You're going from a very specific style of football under Maresca, so you've got that change as well. And don't shoot the messenger. I can't see how Leicester don't get a points deduction given the charges that weren't, kind of brought forward in the Championship, and given we've seen the likes of Reading and Birmingham have dispensation for assisting with their charge, given Leicester's, what's the word we use, robust defence of the charge, I would think that could be a potential hindrance were it to be an issue next season. And
we touched upon successful teams keeping their squad together and succeeding in the Premier League. They've lost their manager, Enzo Maresca. They've lost their best player in Kieran Dewsbury-Hall as well. I mean, that's going to be a big loss for them, isn't it?
Massively, yeah. And Didi played a lot of minutes. I don't know, there was talk about them re-signing him possibly, but no, Dewsbury-Hall and Maresca is massive. And, I sat in the home stand at Leicester a few times, and, it wasn't all, this is amazing. There was a lot of, is this a bit one pace? Are we getting away with this, winning by 1 goal? Okay, score 97 points and win the league, but with a pretty stacked Championship squad. So I think that's a tricky one, but I'm a big fan of Steve Cooper, I've got to say.
Brilliant. I'm a big fan of Russell Martin at Southampton as well. I thought he did very well in the Championship. He did very well to win the playoffs against Leeds, obviously. Very possession-heavy style of football, playing out from the back. It comes with its risks, but could that bring success in the Premier League?
I'm a bit concerned about that. He's almost set it up in that way of, look, we might get a couple of absolute hide-ins here trying to do this, but his thought is that you can lose a couple of games heavily, but if you get the wins alongside it in games where you can keep the ball and, as you say, hyper possession style. And again, you look at a similar thing to what I said about the Ipswich recruitment. You look at the Southampton recruitment, and it's so hard to bring in, proven players at Premier League level at just $100,000 a week and 20 million, or you do what Luton did with a Ross Barkley, and you're just gambling on what is essentially a £5 million loan fee for the wages for 1 year. So it's really, really hard. I'm a bit more concerned about Southampton and Martin, and I really love his commitment to that style. I just wonder how well it works with that squad in the Premier League.
And their transfers have been decent in my eyes in terms of they've made sure Flynn Downs stays put. They've got Harwood Bellis, who we know is a talented defender. They've also signed Ronnie Edwards from Peterborough, Nathan Wood as well. In terms of their progression as a club, they seem like great signings, but can they keep them in the Premier League? It's such a big step up, isn't it?
It's the same conversation with Ipswich, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is, where are your guarantees at Premier League level? And I know kind of nothing's guaranteed. And what I will say about Southampton, when we make the comparison with Ipswich and the momentum that you could possibly ride through, was, a playoff win and from fourth place. And I don't know whether they have that searing momentum that, to bank on that maybe Ipswich do, even though probably a little bit more quality left in the squad in terms of the experience that came down.
So we'll finish this off by giving our little mini predictions on those bottom three. How are you feeling now in terms of 1 going down, 2 going down, or 3 going down, if you had to say?
Would you be surprised if 2 of the 3 went down?
I think Southampton and Leicester will go down. I think Leicester will finish bottom. And I think Ipswich are going to be brilliant.
And you've just done my job for me. And I didn't need to stitch myself up on camera, did I? Let's say that you're going to be totally right about it. No, but it does feel so hard. And I know people say last year was an outlier and that it's actually quite rare for all 3 to drop. And there's normally some kind of basket case, isn't there, that drops out. And, Brentford have been amazing, haven't they? But they're going to have to build a new team and they might be Ivan Toney less. And you never know whether they could kind of drop. And Nottingham Forest do crazy stuff from time to time under their ownership, but they kind of look stable. And
Fulham have lost a couple of key players, but
maybe,
you never know.
Yeah, maybe. But you're really stretching to pull these teams down into the bottom 3. And I think it just speaks to the wider issue of cliff edges between Champions League, rest of the Premier League, parachutes, Championship, and on we go. We could do with giving teams who have excelled, especially in something like Ipswich's, to come up 2 divisions, giving them a chance of, staying up without having to do what Forest did and busting through the FFP limits.
Right, I'll say what you won't say. Say that Ipswich are going to stay in the Premier League. They're going to do really, really well. Thank you.
With 34 points in 17 plays. Yeah.
You'd take it. Thanks very much, Ben,
Pleasure.
for joining me for this mini chat.